Mortals of Earth. Many of you know the name Dr. Robert Schoch, the geologist who changed the game when he dated the Sphinx back thousands of years earlier than accepted. He stood firm against decades of academic resistance, holding to evidence, not popularity. But this time, it wasn't Robert who stunned the room. It was his wife, Catherine Ulissey. In a talk that no one saw coming, Catherine proposed a bold and incredibly well-supported theory, that the pyramids and temples of Egypt were once intentionally covered in mudbrick, not for aesthetics, but for protection from the sun. Her evidence? An enormous archive of historical photos, satellite imagery, and on-the-ground research showing that these sites were originally encased, not surrounded by mudbrick structures. Over time, as the temples were revealed and uncovered, the bricks moved outward as the sites were cleared incrementally over a millennia. They eventually moved to the outer edges of ancient temples and in modern times have become misinterpreted as perimeter walls, and their original purpose forgotten. But why would the ancients cover these structures? To shield them from solar cataclysm, a solar event powerful enough to scorch stone, collapse civilizations, and force survivors underground. And suddenly, so much made sense. I stood up after her talk and shared photos from my own travels. Details I'd puzzled over for years now aligned perfectly with her findings. Even later that evening at dinner, I overheard strangers still buzzing about her talk, many calling it the highlight of the conference. Catherine, modest and shaken from nerves, could hardly believe it. But from what I saw, I think we just witnessed the emergence of a major new voice in ancient research. What if our ancestors had faced solar destruction before? What if they tried to leave us blueprints?
Not myths.
The Carrington Event, named after British astronomer Richard Carrington who observed it, was a massive solar flare and coronal mass ejection. In September 1859, the most powerful geomagnetic storm in recorded history. This solar expulsion unleashed electrified plasma and particles that reached Earth in about 18 hours, inducing extreme currents in the planet's magnetic field. Effects included brilliant auroras visible as far south as the Caribbean and Hawaii, while telegraph systems worldwide malfunctioned. Operators were shocked by sparks, lines operated without batteries due to induced voltages, and in some cases, the enhanced currents ignited paper tapes and set fire to equipment at stations. If a similar event struck today, it could devastate modern infrastructure, causing widespread blackouts from overheated transformers, disruptions to satellites and GPS, failures in communication networks including the internet, especially via vulnerable undersea cables, and economic damages estimated in the trillions, with power outages potentially lasting weeks to months. Yet, the Carrington event was relatively mild compared to ancient solar proton events known as Miyake events, detected in tree rings through spikes in carbon-14 isotopes.
For instance, the 774-77500 event was at least 50% stronger, while others like the one around 12,350 BC may have been 10 to 80 times more intense, potentially capable of far greater destruction if they recurred now. So what could we do today if another Carrington-like event was on the way?
Let's break it down. Science first, then speculation. Option 1. Scientists have long considered aerosol injection as a way to cool the Earth, like volcanic eruptions do. When Mount Pinatubo erupted in 1991, it cooled the planet by
0.5 degrees.
Could we mimic that? By spraying sulfur dioxide or calcium carbonate into the stratosphere, we could scatter sunlight and reduce surface heating. But while this could cool things down, it doesn't block radiation, especially gamma rays or charged particles from a solar storm. In fantasy, imagine aerosolized nanoparticles that align, bond, and absorb solar radiation, like a temporary engineered solar shield, a form of defense far beyond current science.
Or perhaps rediscovered?
Option 2. Chaff-like scatter shields. Military aircraft use chaff, tiny metallic strips, to confuse radar. Could Earth do the same to the sun? The idea: release conductive or reflective material into the atmosphere to scatter solar particles. Sounds clever. But in practice? Not great. Gamma rays pass through almost anything that lightweight, and chaff only works on radar frequencies, not cosmic radiation. In fantasy, picture metamaterials, programmable matter that forms a dynamic shield around the planet, maybe even guided by electromagnetic nodes at ancient sites. A planetary defense
System built long ago and forgotten. Option 3.
Triggering a nuclear winter. Yes, this has been proposed. Set off nuclear detonations in remote areas to kick dust and soot into the stratosphere, block the sun, cool the planet. In simulations, a limited exchange could cool Earth by 5 to 10 degrees. It might work to counteract heat, but again, radiation goes right through. And the consequences? Fallout, famine, global panic. The cure could be worse than the crisis. In fantasy, imagine a non-radioactive version. Fusion bombs or ancient technologies designed to mimic that cooling effect without destruction. Sound far-fetched? Maybe. But how else do we explain entire temples encased in protective layers? Who does that unless they're shielding something sacred or fragile? Then there's Göbekli Tepe, the world's oldest known temple, deliberately buried under tons of sediment. Why? Some say it was preserved, others say it was hidden. But maybe, just maybe, it was shielded. Maybe the ancients knew the sun wasn't always our friend, and they built accordingly. And I can tell you the theories that it was buried in a landslide are idiotic. The surrounding hill did not have the height or gravity to do that, and the manner in which they were buried made it self-evident that it was done manually. What can we do? Grid hardening, surge protectors, EMP shielding, infrastructure upgrades, Faraday cages, protect essential electronics, underground bunkers, radiation-safe shelters. Early warning systems. Satellites like SOHO and DSCOVR give us 1 to 3 days of notice, but that's reaction, not prevention. The question is, what don't we remember? Could ley lines, resonance sites, or sacred architecture hold clues to ancient defense systems? Were the gods simply engineers from the last reset? Is Earth itself wired to protect us? If we only knew how to tune it? Maybe the ancients didn't just build monuments. Maybe they built messages. Maybe they built defenses. And maybe Catherine Ulissey just reminded us how to see them again. So next time someone calls it superstition, remember, we're the ones living with satellites that could die in 8 minutes of solar wrath. They built with stone and buried their knowledge to survive, and we're just starting to dig it back up. That's all for now. Stay curious and have a good one.